welcome to this Mark's Reviews and Tutorials video. Today we're going to be switching out the rear brake pads on an F25 BMW. This has got the electric handbrakes, and again, all BMWs with the electric handbrakes have got this similar brake system on the back, so this video will be able to help you out. So to start off with, we take off the wheel. Jack the car up, unbolt it, take off the wheel. That's obvious. The next step is to put a jack stand under your car. You need to find somewhere strong and solid, and an excellent spot on an F25 BMW in the back. Now again, I'm not a mechanic, so take this with a grain of salt, but there is a really nice big solid suspension fitting right there, and I am going to put this down underneath. This is height adjustable. I'm going to put links in the description for different bits and pieces. So if you want to get hold of the parts to do this, you can. You work out the height, slide that back in, and put that under there. Okay, now it can't drop on your head. So changing out the brakes on one of these, if you've done brakes on other cars, it is not that much more difficult. The only complicating factor, really, is the electric brake system hanging off the back here. That does actually have to be pulled off the caliper, and we need to wind the caliper back with that guy there. So all you're going to need is a 13mm, probably a socket, something you can put a bit of, these are brake bolts, so they've got to be done up tight when you put it back together, and they're going to be tight to come off. So you do need some decent tools. A 13mm and a 15mm. The 15mm needs to be not too fat. It's in here you need to get in. But a standard, this is a 13mm on the back, and a 15mm, this one here is the one you're holding. You hold that in place and then undo the bolt in the normal direction. The big thing we are going to need is when we wind back, if you've got a scan tool, a big expensive scan tool, you can actually tell this to wind itself back and open up in order to open up the caliper. If not, if you've just got a, just like me, you're a home mechanic, you don't have that big scan tool, then you're actually going to need a T45. It's a Torx driver. You don't need the size 45. A lot of sets stop at 40, so go and check, see if your Torx set has got a 45 in it. Again, I'll put a link in the description so you can get hold of a set that's got a 45. But apart from that, little screwdriver to get the plug out, a couple of smaller Torx which are very standard to get the this cover here off, and it's not too difficult at all. So to start with, we're going to get the 15 and the 13, and we're going to undo these. Now, as these cars get older, the brake parts are going to get more and more rusted and all the rest of it. So this car's only 8 years old. There's no salt on the roads here in Australia, so it's all in excellent condition. But if it's all rusty in a bad way, you can get the WD-40, the penetrant, and spray it on, and even spray it on and then go and have a cuppa. Walk away for an hour and come back once it's softened it all up for you. Step 2 is actually inside the car. Step 1 is chock the wheels. Step 2, and don't do this job on something that's not flat, is to turn the handbrake off. You're going to need to turn the key on. Probably put your foot on the brake and then turn the handbrake off. There you go, you can hear it, zzz, it's gone off. That's what we want in order to work on the brakes. Very, very important. Okay, so here we go. I got myself a 13mm socket for the back and the 15mm to hold it in place. And that's just a standard 15mm, standard thickness, and it's fitting on there, no problems at all. So it doesn't have to be thin. Now, one trick when you're using a socket set, when you're up here, because this is upside down, backwards and all the rest of it, it can be very confusing to work out what's doing a bolt up and what's undoing. So get it here and you go, okay, that's undoing. You get the ratchet set in the right position, and then you're not gonna be a mug and muck it up. So holding that in place. Now this is a little bit, it's banging on here and putting me a little bit off square. And for super tight bolts, it's very important that you come onto them very square. So I'm gonna get a little extension piece to put in there so that it's not being pushed off square, because that's how you strip bolts and muck it up. That's much better. and it's actually really tight. You can go a couple of ways from here. You can get a hammer and give it a tap, as long as it's all perfectly square through here. And also you can get a bigger socket with a bigger handle, which will give you more leverage, because there's not a lot of room in here. But no, she's not coming. Okay. So I can't say this enough times. I've gone from a cheapy socket set to a decent quality socket set, and all of a sudden I've been able to get it just a little bit longer handle. As I said, super important you hold that straight, and then just gave that a bit of a punch, and she's now loosened it off. It's just that first crack that's really important, and now it's going to be able to come. So you can now switch off this, which is what you use for braking, tight bolts. We'll get it and do the other one while we're here. And then switch over to the ratchet. There we go. You know what? There's so much crap behind there. It really is easier just to grab a 13mm spanner and do it with that. There's too much going on behind there. Spin that with my fingers. Okay, so now that can come off. Bolt out, bolt out. Yeah, that's the first time out. See that blue Loctite on there? And then this caliper section here will come out. There we go. So now again, remembering, very important, not to put too much pressure on your brake line. Don't hang anything off your brake lines or anything like that. And at this point, we can take these brake shoes out. And yeah, these, you'll see on the new brake shoes, they sort of have a bit of a flat edge down here, and these have worn right the way down. They took out the brake sensor, so we have to replace the brake sensor. I'll show you that when we get to the other side. Okay, so now it's time just to clean everything up. These little retaining springs, anti-vibration holding springs, I've got genuine BMW brakes, so mine came with new springs, so we take these out, but then even give it a bit of a clean with brake cleaner or whatever you've got to get all the dust and so forth off this, and then she'll be ready to put the pads back in. But the next step, of course, is we have to take off. This here is the electric handbrake system, this electric motor and actuator, and what we need to do is undo these two. There's a clamp up over the top. Undo these two screws, take that off, and actually wind this caliper in a clockwise direction back in. Okay, so now you grab your T30. Now whether you've got a screwdriver or I've just got an Allen key set here. I've grabbed this set out because it's the only one I've got that goes up to a 45, which we're going to need. But just grab a T30 to undo these two screws. So once you've got the both bolts out, then take the plug out, or take the plug out first. Now you'll see here that some clips are really difficult. This one's not. You see, if you give that a press at the back, see how that comes up at the front. So you just make sure that's disconnected, then just give it a good old pull. So we've undone the second bolt. That lifts this bracket here off, which gets the wire away, and then we can lift this whole assembly. It doesn't split here, it splits down where the bolts were. And that's on an O-ring, so we're actually going to lube that O-ring later as well. This is your motor here, and this here is the little guy that needs to be spun in. So this is where that T45 comes in, and it's turning it clockwise. And that just goes in like that, and we turn it. And this is compressing the what's pressing the piston out. It's 2 stages. First stage is we get this out of the way by turning it clockwise and take it all the way until it stops. It's very easy to wind it back. There we go, that's come to a complete stop. And then it's a matter of compressing this. Now you can have a compression tool which you put on, but just for an experiment's sake, I'm going to try the full backyard mechanics and just see. Yep, that could be pressed back by hand. I don't know if you can see that moving or not, but that's going back in. So I will put a link to a compression kit, but there, that's fully back, just done with these.